When it comes to flywheel blasters and the foam flinging hobby, just this past year, there has been a ton of releases. And for that, I really only have two words: market saturation. But when it comes to the 3D printed flywheel blasters, Flywheel has come up with the successor to the Griffin. And while the Griffin has become the definitive platform for flywheel blasters, see the Nailer, my personal favorite, that sets a pretty high expectation to follow. Which brings me to this. This is the Protean by Flywheel. And does it live up to those expectations? Let's take a look. Now, when it comes to this specific blaster, I really wanted to put it through its paces. So I ran it. Quite a bit, actually. During this video, you'll see me use two different Proteans, and that's because I've actually built two of these. Full disclosure, we actually got a hardware kit from DrFlux Industries to build one of these, but I actually ended up purchasing another one as well. After I built the first one and learning about some of the quirks, I decided I was going to build another one. And I actually learned quite a bit about this blaster. Going over the basic features of the Protean, this is a semi-automatic flywheel blaster, and there's actually multiple different options. The Protean file set actually comes with a few different types of files for certain parts, but this is my personal preferred one, so we're just gonna go with this today. You have two triggers, one that starts the motors, and another trigger that engages the pusher, and this pushes the dart into the flywheels. There's a Picatinny rail running all across this blaster, which is actually optional. You don't have to put it on. You also have Picatinny on the bottom, same case here. Up front, we do have this stubby foregrip, which I actually did pick up from DrFlux Industries as well. We have a removable barrel piece up here that's just friction fit. We'll get more into that later. And back here, we have a collapsible rod stock that has 5 total positions. Your battery compartment is located here, at least with this version. And the hardware kit does come with a battery door screw. This battery tray is massive. This is my personal favorite 3S battery. This is a 1500 milliamp 3S graphene LiPo, and it's a pretty big battery, and I'm happy to report that this thing fits almost perfectly. You don't necessarily need a battery this size for this blaster, but if you're gonna be running this thing all day, this is the battery you want. So that's about it for the features. But what makes this thing truly special? There's a total of 6 takedown pins located in the blaster. While you can't take apart the entire blaster with just the takedown pins, you can take down the most important parts. Let me explain. Let's say, for example, you take this blaster to an event and there's different FPS caps. So while you might start off the day with, let's say, 170 FPS cap, later on in the day, you might play a certain game that only has 100 FPS cap. And that's where the Protean really excels. The way this blaster is designed, you can actually remove this top cover and then you can remove the flywheel cage after that. And using these bullet connectors, you can actually swap it out to a different cage. So while the FPS cap might be too high for that specific cage, just swap down to a lower crush or a lower power one and you're good to go. So yeah, in terms of FPS, you can go from something as low as about 100 FPS to pushing 300. Now, while that's not technically possible with a single stage cage, this is actually compatible with dual stages. And it's all as simple as just removing a couple pins. I have seen this type of system before, but in the Protean, it feels the most refined and the most polished. Granted, if you print this blaster yourself, you do have to look out for a couple things. Now, I'm the type of person, whenever I get something new, I don't like to read the instructions. If you do decide to print your own Protean, I actually recommend you do a little bit of research first. The listing for the Protean on printables actually has an FAQ that answers a lot of the questions that I had when I first built this. And I'm kind of irritated I didn't read it first. So if you're having building frustrations with this, I'd recommend reading the FAQ first, but if you're still having issues, you can always contact the designer as well. Part of the issues I ran into was actually tolerance issues with the pins themselves. If you actually buy the blaster already assembled, you don't really have to worry about that. I'd still give it a look though, just to be safe. But with that being said, we're gonna get into probably what is my biggest gripe about this blaster, and it's actually the B-car. For those of you who aren't aware, a B-car is a rifling device for a Nerf blaster that uses bearings to give the darts a little bit of spin or just stabilize the dart flight. Now, in my testing of this blaster, I tried the B-car in a couple different settings and I just had issues. Granted, this may not be the same experience for everyone because I've actually printed out 2 separate B-cars and used them on 2 different blasters, and I haven't had issues with one of them. But when the B-car works, it works great. And that's actually saying something because I've used this blaster quite a bit. I've been fortunate enough to use this blaster both in HVZ and in standard team play objectives. I'm happy to report that I'm actually pretty satisfied with this proficiency. Once I added this foregrip, everything about this blaster just felt right. And one thing I've heard people complain about with Griffins is the trigger pull. And the trigger for the Protean, assuming you did the assembly correctly, is very, very, very snappy. It feels really good. In terms of geared semi-automatic pushers, this almost feels like a solenoid. When the files were first released for the Protean, there were separate files for a solenoid mount. Unfortunately, those files are no longer available, and I am very sad about that. But honestly, this trigger pull is really, really good as it is, and it'll keep costs down a little bit. But with all that being said about this blaster, would I recommend it to a fairly new person to flywheels? Not really. Unless you were to get one assembled by Silver Fox Industries. One thing I can definitely speak on as far as Silver Fox Industries is concerned is I have seen quite a bit of their 3D printed products, and their quality is really top notch. Overall, what do I think of the Protean? As an experienced flywheel handler, this blaster is excellent. Generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of Griffins, but this definitely feels like a more natural evolution of the Griffin platform. With the ergonomics, the trigger pull, the toolless disassembly, and the swappable cages, this is pretty close to what would be my dream flywheel blaster. At the time of recording, there's not a whole lot of options available yet for this blaster, and I'm still disappointed about the solenoid. But as time goes on, I can't wait to see where this blaster goes. And as far as color combos goes, shout out to Adam with this Protean. It is absolutely gorgeous. We really appreciate it. If you would like to purchase a Protean, please use our affiliate link down below. Again, special thanks to Silver Fox Industries for providing the hardware kit for the Protean. As always, stay safe and happy foam flinging.